Good afternoon and welcome to another session of ENG4E. That is Grade 12 Workplace English, brought to you by WASA Distance Education Center. Today's date is Wednesday, March 8th, 2023, and I am your instructor, Mike Laverty. Today we are doing Class 18. So if I've done the math correctly, I think we will end up with 34 classes for this course in Term 2A. So, a little bit over halfway done our classes together. And we're wrapping up our discussion of Unit 3. We just need to talk about we need to talk about one more of the key questions. That's key question 35 and 36. So we will, yesterday we had a discussion about the, how to write a letter with the proper formatting, a business letter, and then so that was key question 34. So we'll actually do 35 and 36 today. So. And those are the final two key questions from this unit. And then tomorrow we can begin a discussion of the culminating activity from this unit. So just a friendly reminder that the WASA office will be closed next week. So that's Monday, March the 13th to Friday, March the 17th. There will be no classes or broadcasts during this time. And I know that some of the learning centers will be closed, so just be aware of that. You may have some closures in your community, and you won't be able to reach out to myself or any of the WASA staff during that time. We will be back on Monday, March the 20th for the beginning of week 6. So week 6 will be March the 20th and onwards. And then we'll do, that's week 6. So so after the March break, we'll have week 6, 7, 8, and 9 together. And then we will be done our broadcast for this course. But of course, I will still be on hand to help you with your assignments and get you through. So weeks 1 and 2, we tackled Unit 1. Weeks 3 and 4, we completed Unit 2. And weeks 4, 5, and 6 will be devoted to, I think, probably just, one class in week 6. And then we will do Unit 4. And then we'll do our final exam preparation during week 9. And then in addition to that, I'll probably end up doing like a course overview. I was thinking about it this morning. We'll probably do a course overview. And we'll probably spend more time, because in hindsight, we probably could have spent more time discussing the novel. But again, this is my first time doing this. So we'll do a course overview, and we'll do a little bit more time discussing our novel, Where the Rivers Meet. Yeah, it's a very rich novel. There's lots of stuff to go through. So I think we might go back and revisit some of those courses, or revisit some of those chapters and have a bit more of a deeper, meaningful discussion about that novel. Because just a heads up that when you write the final exam or the course culminating activity, depending on which one you do, I've discussed this before. The final exam needs to be arranged where someone is in the room with you when you're writing the exam. And it needs to be done in a kind of a neutral location like the learning center. So if you do the course culminating activity, which is a large activity you are assigned and then hand back to me, or you do the timed 2-hour final exam, that final exam will discuss the novel Where the Rivers Meet. So we do need to spend time talking about that in detail. If you are listening live, thanks for joining us on 91.9 FM. You can also listen on Bell ExpressVu, channel 972. You can phone in to the Sioux Lookout office at 1-807-737-4017, or join us toll-free at 1-800-465-7144. Also consider joining the Zoom discussion. If you've got a decent internet connection and access to a computer, you can go to zoom.ca or just open up the Zoom platform on your device. You will select the Join button at the top right. That's where you usually find it. And then it'll ask you for a meeting ID. And my meeting ID is 417-6699-799. Keep watching the YouTube videos. I love seeing the views go up, so look for Laverty Wassa on YouTube. Put that into the search button and go to the playlist, and you will see the ENG4E playlist. You'll see ENG Unit 1, ENG4E Unit 2, ENG4E Unit 3. Next week I'll add Unit 4, and there's a playlist that just says it reads ENG4E Term 2A, and that's all of the classes that we do. So by the time we're done, there'll be 34 videos in that playlist. Please reach out to me at mlaverty, that's MLAVERTY, at NNECSCHOOLS.org. So mlaverty at nnecschools.org. Find me on Facebook, Laverty Wassa. Send me a message, add me as a friend. Phone me at 1-807-737-1488, extension 2211. If you get the receptionist, ask for Mike. Or 1-800-667-3703 for our free long-distance toll-free number. So this is my suggested progress to you. And this becomes more important as we start to think about the end of the school year. You've got about 15 weeks left until graduation date. So just, thinking about that important deadline coming up and just being honest with yourself and just seeing how much work you can pull off, like in the next 3 months or so. But if you've been taking this course for 4.5 weeks, you should have made contact with myself, read the study guide, Unit 1, 2, and 3, read chapters 1 to 12 of our novel, Where the Rivers Meet, completed all the assignments in Unit 1, and completed most of the assignments in Unit 2. So if you're 4.5, almost 5 weeks into the course, more than halfway done, you should have, most of Unit 1 and Unit 2 taken care of. Just to keep yourself on pace, to make sure that you have enough time to finish all the assignments. And not only that, but, hand them into your teacher and get them in ahead of time, right? So, so here is today's lesson. We'll look at an article of the day, and then we'll look at key questions 35 and 36. Your learning goals are to take notes on the format and purpose of memos. That's key question 35. And to review the format and purpose of proposals and reports. That's key question 36. That's a special kind of report, is a proposal. Your success criteria is to become familiar with various forms of business communication by reviewing their, reviewing their format and purpose, and to complete key questions 35 and 36. So that's your success criteria for today. All right, so we've been having discussions about format and purpose and, different forms of communication. And, yesterday we were talking about information, and then, if we think about the word itself, information, it literally means that which doesn't have form, like it's just ideas, it's just out there. And then when you format something, you put it into a specific form, and you give it shape, and you give it meaning. and that's what you're doing. You're taking certain ideas and you're putting it into a certain form. So this form is a newspaper article published in the Globe and Mail. And so we'll have a look at some of the conventions. So conventions are just the way that certain things are done. Like, like in North America, we drive on the right-hand side of the road. That's a convention. It's just a convention is just simply the way things are done. For the most part, to make something happen, right? So there are conventions to follow when you publish a certain kind of article. When you want to work in a certain kind of field, you have to follow the conventions. It's just simply the way things are done. And just because you do something a certain way doesn't necessarily mean it's the best way. You just sort of have to figure out where you fall in that conversation. But if you wanna publish an article in Canada Today, then usually you follow these conventions. So, and the conventions are, the article has a headline, and we'll have a close look at that headline. Newspaper articles usually, but not always, have a photograph. They will include a byline, which tells us who wrote it, where they published it, and when it was published. So this article was written by Justine Hunter. It was published in the Globe and Mail on February 13th, 2023, and it was updated March 3rd, 2023. So that's something that you couldn't do back in the traditional days of newspaper publishing. You put the newspaper out, and if you made a mistake, then you could publish the correction in like next week's paper or next day's paper. So you could do that. But now with the paper being online, and the Globe and Mail, like a lot of publications today, they do both print and online. And some of the stuff is only online, but most of the stuff they publish in the physical newspaper that you can hold in your hand will also be published online. So this article, they must have had a correction, and they had to update it on March 3rd. Or they just had more information. So sometimes the update is somebody makes a mistake, and you got to go back and correct that mistake. Or sometimes it's just new information comes to light, and then you add that to it. The Globe and Mail has also got an interesting feature on their website where I think if you pull up something that's like around 10 years old, or I don't know, older than 5 or 6 years, it'll actually give you a warning saying like, please note this article was published 8 years ago. The information it talks about may no longer be true or accurate or whatever. We also have a caption, and the caption tells us what's happening in the photograph. So in this one, we've got Manitoba Premier Heather Stephenson answers a question as Canada's premiers hold a press conference after a meeting on healthcare in Ottawa on February 7th. And then we got a photo credit, and this photograph was taken by Sean Kilpatrick from the Canadian Press. So that's my photo credit. All right, so let's have a closer look at that headline. Premiers agree to accept Ottawa's healthcare funding proposal. And just before we get into that, just want to have a really brief discussion about these 9 parts of speech. So arguably the 2 most important parts of speech are nouns and verbs. You can write a sentence that doesn't have a pronoun, an article, an adjective, an adverb, a preposition. But to write a complete sentence in English, you've got to have a noun, at least one, and you've got to have a verb. Every complete thought, every complete sentence has to have a noun and a verb. So we talk about things, and we talk about what those things do or what those things are. That is the fundamental level of communicating in the language. There's things, and those things are doing things to other things, or things are being done to them, or they have particular mental states we can talk about, or If the noun we're talking about is a place, then there's certain aspects of that place we can talk about. But we have nouns which name people, places, or things. Examples include teacher, Sue, lookout, happiness. Verbs are action words. Run, ran, running. Verbs are also states of being, like emotions, right? We call these things states of being. You know, like angry, you know, happy. Pronouns are word that takes the place of another noun. So I, he, she, it, my, me, we. These are all pronouns, right? They stand in place of nouns, right? So my name is Mike Laverty. You know, I am Mike Laverty. I am a teacher at WASA. So the word I stands in place for my full name. Adverbs tell us how an action is done. Usually it's a verb. Adverbs can modify. Adverbs usually modify other verbs, but they can also modify. You know, they can modify groups of words as well. But most commonly, it tells us how something was done. So quickly, slowly, expertly, right? So I skated quickly. I spoke slowly. She taught expertly. Adjectives describe nouns, often using the 5 senses. So I've included soft, bright, red, sour, hot. So how things look, smell, taste, touch, feel, that kind of thing. Articles are used before nouns. There's only 3 of them, a, an, and the. That's the easiest one to identify. You literally only have 3 words to choose from. Conjunctions are joining words, and they join words or groups of words together. And, but, yet, so, for example. However, because. These are other examples of conjunctions. Prepositions, they show relationships between nouns and pronouns to other words. Examples include from, in, beside, on, under, over. So they tell us where and when something happened. And interjections are probably the least used of the 9 parts of speech, and they're single words. They often stand alone as their own sentence. Examples include wow, or hey, or ouch. It's sort of like the misfit category of the parts of speech. It's hard to fit them in somewhere. So if we have a look at our headline, so we have premiers, which is a noun. It's a specific noun. It's a proper noun. It names a specific person, place, or thing. So the premiers in this case is capitalized because it's the first. It's the first word of the sentence, but it's also a proper noun, so it'd be capitalized if it was in the middle of a sentence as well. It's also the subject of my sentence. So the first word of a sentence isn't always the subject, but it often is. So the first noun that gets mentioned is quite often the subject of the sentence. So premiers agree to. So to and from are like opposite prepositions. Under and over are another pair, right? So premiers agree to accept. And sometimes you see, you know, I guess agree to would be like sometimes verbs and prepositions go together. So they agree to accept. Ottawa's, another proper noun. So they're accepting Ottawa's proposal, but it's not just any proposal. It's a health care funding proposal. So health care and funding are adjectives that tell us what kind of a proposal it is. So adjectives usually modify nouns, and sometimes a writer will stack many adjectives together to give multiple pieces of information about a noun. And so the subject is the premiers. The The verb or the predicate is accept, and the object would be proposal. So at its heart, this sentence is premiers accept proposal. And then we have additional information. We learn that they didn't just agree to it. They didn't just accept it. They all agreed to accept it. And it's not just a proposal. It's Ottawa's healthcare funding proposal. So you have the bare meaning of the sentence. You have a subject. And so you have a subject, which is the main thing of the sentence. It's what the sentence is really about. Then you have the predicate, which is what the subject does or what is said about the subject. And then you have the object, which is something that the subject is acting upon, or it's something they did, or it's something about them. But it's sort of like secondary to them. So hopefully that makes sense. I try not to get too technical with this course because, or with this class, because our, you don't want to get bogged down too much into the technicalities of the language, but I think it's really important to break it down and to almost get like scientific with it. And I know I certainly enjoy doing that, but it will open your eyes to how language works, and it'll help you become a better reader, a stronger editor of your work and the work of other people. Okay. Just briefly, we'll look at the article itself, see if we can pick up any tips here. Premiers agreed on Monday to accept a federal offer that will add $46 billion in new healthcare funding over 10 years, even though it falls short of what the province and the territory say they need. Quote, "This is not long-term, sustainable funding that will address the healthcare challenges that we have across the country." So it's a quote from a person. So when you quote someone, you open up the quotation mark, you say what they said, and then you put a comma inside the quotation mark. So you go comma, then quotation mark, and then you say who said it. Manitoba Premier Heather Stephenson said after an hour-long virtual meeting of the premiers and territorial leaders on Monday. So comma, then quotation mark, and then the slug or the speaker tag. And the speaker tag tells us who said it. And it sometimes tells us how they said it. Like it could say like said angrily or said enthusiastically. So it tells us it tells us who said it, how they said it, and it might give us some information like when they said it. So in this case, after an hour-long virtual meeting. But the premiers say they weren't going to leave money on the table. Another quote. It took 2.5 years to even be able to sit down and be at the table and have a discussion with the Prime Minister, comma, quotation mark, Miss Stephenson, comma, who is chair of the Council of the Federation, comma, said in an interview, right? So sometimes you bring up someone's name. So in an example, it could be Mike Laverty, comma, who was a teacher at Wausau, comma, is looking forward to reading his students' culminating activities, right? So you bring up someone's name, you put a comma, and then you write additional information about that person or a further explanation of who they are, or maybe their title or their occupation or an interesting fact about that person, and then you put a second comma, and then you carry on with your sentence. You can use commas. You can use commas, a pair of commas. You can use a pair of brackets or a pair of dashes, and they all accomplish the same thing. Ottawa is now negotiating bilateral agreements with each province and territory. The government is going to allow each premier to prioritize where their share of that funding will go, as long as it falls within the priorities identified by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Family health teams, health workers in surgery and diagnostic backlogs, mental health and substance use, and a modernized digital healthcare system. So in that case, we've got a great use of the colon. So the sentence says, as long as it falls within the priorities identified by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. So you can do a sentence like that, and then you put a colon, and then the colon is like, and here they are, right? So these are the priorities that the Prime Minister identified. And since some of those lists have commas in them, or at least one of them does, they use the semicolon to block off the items in that list. And if the items in your list have words like and they have commas, that's a good use of the semicolon. All right, so that's probably enough of that. So I want to get back into this assignment. So yesterday we looked at the letters with style, and we talked about using block format and modified block format. So just a quick reminder, block format is when everything is on the left-hand side of the screen, and modified block format is when the sender's information, so that's your address and your contact information, is on the right-hand side of the screen. So maybe what I'll do is I will do a screen share. Right, so here's my letter example. So the sender information is up here at the top of the letter. I don't know why it's putting an extra space there. I don't like that. Let's go to paragraph. Don't add a space. There we go. So modified block format has the sender's address shoved all the way to the right hand side, so not centered, not on the left, but all the way on the right. So this is what we call modified block format. And then regular block format is just simply that. You just have all of your sender information on the left hand side of the screen. So where did we end up yesterday? So for question 34, you have to write 2 letters. And the first letter we looked at was scenario 1, where we're talking about you are graduating from high school, and then you write Angelina Anderson, the campus director, and that one's done with regular block format. Scenario 2 is you're working, you were an employee at your local northern store for many years, but then, thankfully, after years of hard work, you've been promoted to the position of manager. So now you're the manager of this store. The other manager was retiring and had to be replaced. You have been thankful for the opportunity, and you've been doing your best to satisfy both your employees and your companies. A few days ago, however, you were in a really bad mood because of something that happened away from work. So something in your personal life, or maybe on your way to work, happened. Unfortunately, you have taken some frustration and anger out on a customer by the name of Mary Weary. She had accidentally bumped into you while coming around a corner, and even though she said she was sorry, you got upset with her. Mary was shocked by your reaction and said she probably would not be back shopping at the store for a while. She had decided to tell her family and friends about the incident. So, there's that old cliche from like businesses and restaurants that a happy person, a person who got good service will tell one of their friends, but a person who gets treated badly will tell 10 of their friends, right? So it's not like a set and fast rule, but it just sort of speaks that, when people get good service, sure, they tell people and they spread the word around, but just wait until they get bad service, and that's when they really start talking. So as a manager, you want to address this problem. It sounds like in this case you were in the wrong, and you've wronged this woman, and she was treated poorly, and she's got every reason to be upset with you and to be telling her friends and family about what happened. So you've got to fix the problem, and your solution is to apologize to her in a letter form. Encourage her to come back, tell her you're sorry, and then even tell her you're even willing to allow her a free shopping spree up to a value of $150. So, she can buy whatever she wants up, and she gets 150 bucks in like store credit. So that sounds like a pretty reasonable offer. I can't imagine that too many people would be not accepting that. So for both letters, and we didn't really discuss this yesterday, so it's good to review it. You are to write a rough copy of each letter, and then final copies using a computer. If you choose to produce the final copy of each letter handwritten, you must ensure that it is done neatly. Please submit only the final copy of each letter for marking. And so, just really quickly here, I'm going to go back to my Word document, and since this is a modified block format, I'm going to go and move my, and over here I'm going to put a little note that this is modified block format, and that is when the sender's info is on the right margin and everything else is to the left. There's one space in between my information and Mary Weaver's information. So, and then yesterday I quickly said that paragraph 1, I will introduce myself and explain the problem I want to solve / apologize. I am writing to. Paragraph 2, explain my actions, apologize, propose a solution. Paragraph 3, closing. Thank you for shopping with us, and say to contact me directly. And so what you might want to do for something like this is you might want to do like a sentence prompt or a sentence planner, and you can even go like like sentence about the shopping spree. So paragraph 2 will open with a a sentence about me apologizing for my actions. Could maybe even do a sentence about explaining my behavior. You might want to mention what happened. Still doesn't excuse what I did, though. So something like that, right? So I'm just giving myself notes about what I'm gonna write. So I am writing to, I don't know, something like to fix a problem, to make things. To make peace with you, find a positive way forward, something like that. So I'm just giving myself some notes. So that's that's going to be the opening sentence, and it's going to be something like that. So that's one way you can do it. I mean, or you can just simply write the thing, but I find that this is really helpful, especially for me. I just give myself some sentence prompts, and then I don't forget anything. These are all the things I'm going to talk about. So, yeah, so I would do something like that and finish off that letter. All right, we have to jump in here. So, yes, in yesterday's class, we talked about Indeed.com and LinkedIn. So, up on the screen, I got a couple articles here. So there's Memo Format, how to write one with examples. That's from LinkedIn.com. And I have Indeed.com, has how to improve your memo format with memo samples and examples. So let's go to that Indeed.com real quick. And so if we go to Indeed.com and we go to Memo Format, so how to improve your memo format with memo samples. They give you lots of great ways that you can how to format your memo, what a memo is exactly. The other one that I wanted to share with you was LinkedIn. So that's a memo format, LinkedIn. So again, if I just go back to my Google search and I go to LinkedIn, memo format, how to write one with examples. So I've got these two articles, and they teach us, what a memo is, how to format one. So I suggest to you to go to those two websites, have a look at that article. So that's Indeed.com, how to improve your memo format with memo sample and examples, and LinkedIn.com. And that one is memo format, how to write one with examples. So, I think the best how-to articles have, an example section with them so you can see how they're done. LinkedIn and Indeed.com are both places where you can learn about job opportunities, learn about employers, all that kind of stuff. So they're a very useful online resource. But let's go to the question itself. So key question 35, memos with character. Scenario 1. Assume that you are working in any position in your home community. You are to produce a memo in two different styles. Example, with words memo and memorandum to an audience within your workplace. So, they're not really different styles, but I guess, one memo can say memo at the top and your other one will say memorandum. If you are not actually working somewhere in your community at present, choose an employer of interest to you. For example, the band office, the school, the community store, nursing station, etc. Your message must be workplace related, but can be about any aspect of your work. Your audience can be any of the following: your coworkers, your supervisor, your manager, the maintenance person, the caretaker. You can make up names if you wish. Use proper memo format as outlined earlier in the course and with which you have been practicing. Your message is to consist of at least 6 sentences. You will need to write a rough copy of your memo and then revise and edit as needed. All right. So let's go and look at one of these articles. So the Indeed.com, how to improve your memo format. So all right, so how to choose a memo format. While all memos follow the same format, the content and tone of your memo will vary. The type of memo depends on the purpose of the memo, the message, and the desired outcome. Here are some steps to follow when choosing a memo format. Step 1. First, consider the purpose of your memo. Memos can ask for information, they can request confirmation, or they can suggest an action. So we've talked about this before, right? So you're simply, and this is kind of goes back to the emails we can send. So we can simply send somebody information. We can request confirmation, request that they've received something, or request that they've done something, or we can suggest an action that they do. You might also send a memo to provide a progress report or broader business update to people in your organization. 2. If your memo requires a response or follow-up action from the recipients, include a section that clearly states what you require and any applicable deadlines. So this is good. This is good to keep in mind when we're emailing someone, when we're writing a letter, when we're doing any kind of workplace communication. It's good to be to the point and be direct and to give people specific instructions, right? If someone's going to take the time to read your memo and take the time out of their day to read what you sent, you should do them the courtesy of telling them exactly what you need from them, right? You give them an actionable thing that they can do, right? And that also helps if they're busy too, right? A lot of workplaces, and we talked about this earlier, they have like a subject, kind of like a code. If something is just strictly for information, they can put information only. If it's an urgent action, they'll put UA, or urgent action required, UAR. Or if it's just like please respond, it's like you're not just sending an information email. they have to respond to it. You can include that in your memo too, right? Just let the person know how urgent it is, right? A memo does not require a salutation, and you may not include a sign-off, right? So you don't usually sign a memo, and usually it doesn't even require a salutation. You know, it just says who it's from and who it's to. Consider the best method of sending your memo. So should you email it? Should you post it to a web page? Should you send it through Messenger? Do you actually print this memo out and give it to your staff member, right? So that's you got to pick how it's going to be done. So you need a clear subject, you need a clear outcome, and you need to know who's going to write it. So I'm also going to go back to my other website here. And then they relay the same information just in slightly different ways, right? So I'm going to find an example. So we have, let's see, status memo, Johnson Solutions. So I'm going to just copy and paste that and put this into my Word document. I'll open up a new one, a new Word document, and I'm just going to copy and paste. I just simply copy and pasted the text of a memo I found online. And I'm going to save this document to my desktop so I don't lose it. And it's going to be memo example. And so at the top, I am going to use the full phrasing memorandum. And so in this case, well, let's go back to the you are to produce a memo in 2 different styles. So this one's with the words. I'm using memorandum for this one. So you're communicating, so it's within the workplace. So choose an employer of interest to you. Okay, so let's go back to my memo here. So I'm not going to put my address in here. So it's memorandum. Let's see the date. You can use the full date if you want. I think it's best just to avoid any kind of confusion. 2023. So this is 2. Let's just say, you know, for myself, I could do Andrea Cole. Oops, I spelled her name wrong. Don't spell your boss's name wrong. And she is the whoops. Getting some weird stuff here today. Vice principal at Wassa Distance Education Center. And then I just simply put my information here. So I'm just taking a template and I am putting in my information. And let's see here. What am I? I'm an English teacher. And then I can just simply copy and paste Wassa Distance Education Center. All right, so the CC is the carbon copy, and this is, you know, like I think, you know, memorandums came first, and then emails came second. So the formatting of a memorandum is very similar to an email. Like they're very close, right? And then it's because they come from the same place. So a CC, that's optional. You could put a CC in there if you wanted to. You don't have to include it, but if you do a CC, then it'll be, you know, it'll be, I'll just put someone else in the organization. And this is optional. It does not need to be included with your memo. But if you want, and if you think it's relevant, you can put it in there. And the way that works, like when you CC somebody on an email, there's got to be a legitimate reason why you're including them in the message. There has to be a reason why they're being included in the message. There's also a blind CC, which of course you can't do with a memo, but a blind CC on an email is an email recipient that no one else can see but you. So if you send an email to 10 people and they're all blind CC'd on it, all they know is that it was sent to them. They don't know who else got included on it. The subject is very important. So let's just do maybe this is like graduation. We could say 2023 graduation update. There we go. So it's an update on our 2023 update. Okay, and then you've got the three paragraphs, and if you notice at the end of the memo, there's no salutation, there's no send off, there is no signature, and that's typical formatting for. And if you look at the examples from either LinkedIn or Indeed.com, these examples of memos, they don't have like a send off. It's just the word memorandum at the top, to, from, subject, date, and then the title, like the and then there's the body of the memo, right? And I'm just copying and pasting these instructions right here, and I'm just gonna copy and paste them in here. So I need to, and then most memos will follow this 3-paragraph formatting. So paragraph 1, I will start with a direct and brief introduction that states the reason for the memo. Whoops. Paragraph 2 will provide concise but detailed information to the reader. And paragraph 3, my closing, will end with a clear closing and a call to action. You can add a deadline here too. So they put the date at the top. The date can be at the bottom. I kind of like the date at the top. It's very important information about when it was sent out. And so then I just got to fill in the blanks now. I've just got to write down some information like and then you're just using your imagination to make up a for this one, I would give my boss a list of the things the planning committee has figured out, and that's going to be the date, the venue, the theme, the entertainment, etc. of the graduation. And then my second paragraph, or maybe it would be, maybe that would be more suited for paragraph 2, and then maybe paragraph 1 would be an update on when our committee met and what we talked about. Well, that's all the time we have for today.